Hi everyone, I'm Katie, one of the marketing managers here at Rezatec. We're going to get going now as it's a couple of minutes past past. Thank you very much for joining Rezatec and Black Veatch's co-hosted webinar focusing on Know Your Data, Enhancing Water Network Management. We hope that you and your families are staying safe during these challenging times. To start with, I'd like to run through a few simple housekeeping rules. First things first, can everyone hear me? If you can, please write yes in the chat box. Great, a few replies. So everyone apart from myself, Dave and Mark will be muted for the duration of the webinar just to help with limiting interruptions and any background noise. If you do have a question, please could you submit it through the Q&A option, which you can find at the bottom or the top of your screen on Zoom, opposed to in the chat box, as we won't be answering any questions from there. Please feel free to submit your questions as we go through the presentation, and we'll be holding a Q&A session at the end. Due to high numbers of participants today, we might not be able to answer all of your questions, so if we're not able to, we'll ensure that we get back to you directly afterwards. We will also be recording the webinar, and we'll ensure that we send a copy to you by the end of the week. So now that we've gone through the housekeeping, and before we start, we'd like you to tell us something about you. Every utility has its own digital transformation journey, and there are many, many models out there that describe it. We've created our own very simple version just to gauge your opinion that you can hopefully now see on the screen. In a moment, a pop-up of a poll will appear on your screen, and we'd like you to anonymously vote where you think you are on your digital transformation journey as a utility. The stages are on the screen and as followed. Number 1, exploratory. You're undertaking some ad hoc projects without full commitment to complete digital adoption and have limited in-house experience. Number 2, pockets of good practice. Some of your departments are invested and making progress towards digital transformation. You're exploring innovative initiatives, but it's not yet the norm, and you have some in-house experience. Number 3, company-wide adoption. You have a well-formed and developed digital strategy. You're starting to deploy digital into your utility as the norm, and you have good in-house digital expertise. And finally, number 4, class-leading innovation through digital. Your digital strategy is in place and fully defined by a roadmap, including benefits and milestones. You're actively looking to test and deploy leading solutions. You have a strong, innovative culture throughout the business, and you also have very strong in-house capabilities. So you should now see the poll has popped up on your screen. Using the categories that we've just discussed, please can you vote where you think you are on your digital transformation journey. Don't worry, we will revisit these results later in the presentation, and sorry to exclude any of you who aren't from a utility here. Whilst you're completing the poll, I'd just like to do a quick run through of what we hope you'll take away from today's webinar. We'll start by focusing on where we feel the water industry is in terms of digital transformation, moving on to how you can move through the journey, touching on data, where it comes from, knowing what data you already have and how to use it most effectively, including dark data, how innovative technologies are playing a part in this journey and what insights you can get with them, what those new insights are doing and how you're measuring against traditional KPIs or how you may need to make new KPIs, why using these KPIs and technologies to make data-driven decisions is essential, and then finally a couple of case studies highlighting the use of technology and the benefits that our customers saw. So thank you all for voting in the poll. I'm going to end that for everybody now. The majority of people voted that they were at company-wide adoption, which is really, really interesting. And then second place was pockets of good practice. Only 5 people voted that they're leading class innovation through digital. So very interesting there. On that note, I'd like to hand over to both David Johnson, Rezatec's Global Water Manager, and Mark Caney, Black Veatch's Director of Asset Management, to take you through the journey.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you all for taking the time to listen to us today. Very interesting results there. We're very excited to be running this series with Black Veatch, and thank you very much, Mark, for making this possible.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
So let's start by looking back at the where and the how civilization have observed, or when they've observed, a number of leaps in innovation, aka industrial revolutions. So really looking at 1.0, that was the rise of the mechanical era, the mechanical workforce. 2.0, mass production, thinking Henry Ford. 3.0, thank you, Bill Gates, bringing in the computer era. So not many of us would know a life without computers. Our children certainly are not going to know that. And 4.0, where we are now, we're now entering this realm of cyber physical systems where everything can be smart. We live in a fully interconnected world where sensors are communicating on the cloud, presenting new ways to understand us and our assets, evolving the way we look at certain things, the way we measure certain things, and the way we drive performance across all of these elements. So this is not a phenomenon that is purely focused on one industry. The manufacturing, retail, utilities, we're all walking the same path. So really, what does Water 4.0 look like? So Water 4.0 is seen as the convergence of the physical and the digital world. These worlds are connected by vast arrays of data flowing back and forth from IIoT and sensors monitoring assets. This interactive flow of information enables a deeper understanding of the physical world. And when leveraging advanced analytics, this presents new and meaningful insights. For example, using technologies like machine learning with these ever-expanding data sets, utilities can continually optimize their processes and their designs, as well as extract critical insights and predictive insights to target resources and capital accordingly. So when it comes to really defining Water 4.0, we could probably suggest that this is a place of empowerment, enabling executives and managers to make better decisions from insights generated by artificial intelligence, which is contextualizing structured and unstructured data to provide efficiencies and visibility that have never before been realized.
And I think, Dave, when you look at the infographic that you've just put up there, it can often seem like that's a place in the future that we're headed towards, and a lot needs to happen between now and then for us to get there. But actually, I think there are things that are happening right now, things that are changing that mean that we're already on that journey. I'd like to just take a look at a couple of areas to see kind of, not in the too distant past, the way we used to do things compared to the way we are doing things today. I'm going to look at 4 areas really: data, software and systems, technology, and decision making and asset control. So if we look at data, it used to be that if you wanted some data from some sensors on your assets, you had to physically go out and get it. This might have been going out and getting a daily download or even a weekly download. Now we have data feeds that are always on and coming to us. We don't have to go to them, they come to us. And we get that 24/7, either through a web interface or maybe just something through the cloud that we can connect to. If we look at our software and our services, a lot has changed in that landscape too. We used to have more of a large monolithic setup with single suppliers and a single locked platform with a number of modules maybe, but if the platform didn't really do what you wanted it to do, you were kind of stuck unless you wanted to kind of bespoke it yourself. Whereas now, if you look at it now, we're in a much different situation. Many different providers that can provide technology and services. It's a more microservices environment, and we're moving into this world of an interoperable ecosystem. And this is where you get all a wide range of capabilities from a wide range of providers, meeting the different needs of clients that they can plug in or take out as and when those challenges arise and they need those services.
So this is actually something that resonates with us. We are one of those providers who we're partnering up with other providers to build new solutions, new innovative solutions that we can take to market. So that certainly resonates.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting about that is the fact that the speed that these innovations come through, I think, with the diversity of thinking in these different companies is really starting to take hold. If we take a look at technology, that has changed too. If I use the example of your kind of telemetry systems or OT equipment, I'm sure many of you will remember when you said, well, where's your telemetry master station? The answer might be, oh, it's in the back room there in our office, or it's under someone's desk. That's kind of not happening anymore. You know, we have bespoke data centers that are set up and configured to do this, or even cloud services, which means that nothing is on premise and everything is accessed through this remote service. If we look at our decision making and our asset control, our decision making historically has been based on experts. It's been quite subjective, based on personal knowledge, expertise, potentially even gut feel. And we've also had the need for operatives to be on site, sometimes under difficult and dangerous conditions, to control these assets. We're now moving into a world where we have the capabilities to potentially control these assets remotely or even autonomously, supported by artificial intelligence. And we're moving to a position where a lot of our decision making is now data driven. It's based on risk, it is forwards looking, and it is more preventative and proactive in nature than it is reacting to issues that have hit us on the ground. I think a kind of summary you could take away from this is that it's a fast-paced situation, lots of new things and new solutions and innovations coming online all the time. And I think understanding what is available in the market and what is really useful is the key to actually realizing some of the quick and near-time wins in terms of moving along your own company's digital journey.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, to that point, there's quite a common misconception that only new data really brings adds value, and you can only drive and get insights and visibility through this new shiny data.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. You get there, well, how much tech should I buy? Do I need to buy lots of new widgets? Do I need to collect reams of new data? And to my experience, most companies actually, they start by being quite worried that their data may not be quite good enough, or they don't have enough of it for some of the solutions that are available. You often find that actually most companies have a lot of data, and there's some really useful, good stuff in there that they have. Sometimes the other thing is that they don't always know what they have, and therefore can't always see where this value resides. And this is the term that you commonly hear referred to as dark data, or the dark data issue. There are a number of definitions, but this one kind of sums it up, which really says dark data is that information that your organization collects and processes, and you might use it for one of your regular activities, but you then fail to use it for any kind of secondary issues. A couple of good examples of this might be, you might go and collect some asset survey data to update a network model, but then not put all that information back into your asset inventory. You might collect pump performance information to inform a deterioration model that helps you with your investment planning, but not pass that insight onto your supply chain and commercial teams so they can understand which manufacturers' pumps are working well for you and which aren't. And we'll cover this in one of the future webinars in terms of how we actually can leverage some of this data and what we can do with it. But it's interesting just how much of this data we hold. And there are many numbers around, but they're kind of in this ballpark, which basically says almost over half of your data can be considered in this category of dark data. And if we look at a couple of the leading reasons as to why it falls under this category, it could be that the data's there, but there's not enough analysis being done on it to understand whether or not this is still relevant, timely, and useful. It could be that the data is structured in such a way that it can only be accessed through certain systems that you have or technologies, and therefore creating a ring fence around its viability for those secondary uses. Or it could be that the data's there, but the tools that you have just can't make sense of it. It lacks that primary key, that thing that can make it interoperable and link it with other things. And I think this is one of the key takeaways for me around this, which is understanding what you have and having the ability to integrate it and to view it relatively gives us a much richer picture in terms of what's happening within our organizations. And this is really about where you can start to extract the value around this.
So really moving on from what Mark has outlined, there are, and reiterating that, there are many sources of data within an organization. And this data doesn't only need to reside with those who are producing it. In that traditional siloed approach, data is valuable, and it's valuable to the entire business. So it really should be sought out. So some of the common data repositories or locations where this data would reside include workforce management systems, GIS, SCADA, enterprise asset management systems. Likewise, there are many standalone sources of external data that can knowingly or unknowingly add value to your organization. These include social media streams, so the ability to quickly understand where a burst main is, for example, or sensor technology, which is constantly observing the landscape, assessing change, and recording assets as well. We've got weather feeds and another input. So really looking across all of these prospective data sources, there are many opportunities for cross-pollination, or really the collaboration of data to extract more meaningful information and to address some of the key industry challenges that are being faced. So from our example of this, and really from our expertise, we provide valuable insights and predictions and predictive insights on the risk of failure across large assets. And the way we do that is by leveraging what clients actually have. So using existing asset data from their GIS, using their burst and history data, which is often stored in other locations, so independent data applications. So for example, in leakage management systems. So separate sources of data, but combining those, taking them from their different locations and pooling them together with geospatial data and satellite sensor observation. This enables us to create that valuable information and present it to the client. And again, I stress, this is data that they have combined with other data. So these types of insights can provide businesses with the ability to realize cost savings in the region of 20 to 30%. So this reiterates the fact that information is valuable, data is valuable. So having this data to hand is not the end of the conversation. There are broader conversations and considerations. For example, in some cases, old architectural or IT architecture needs to change to enable collaborative and complementary interaction between business units. This enables performance enhancement to be realized, fine-tuning of organizational structures to provide leadership, to own, to develop strategies, and to provide clear direction on data ownership, data governance, and data utilization. So no doubt across the board, you would have picked up on the fact that there are a lot of digital natives now moving into the C-suite. So we've started to see chief digital officers, chief information officers, and these guys and girls have got the mandate to drive the way in which organizations look at their data and the way that they measure and monitor systems, processes, and performance of the business.
I think I've seen this quite often as well, and it's interesting in working with some of the companies. You see how they're starting to tackle this issue of the blurring of the lines between that kind of IT, OT, and ET world that we see in the little diagram on the right, that have been quite traditionally separate. And we're starting to see issues around who owns the data, who owns the systems the data resides in, who owns the usage and the governance of it. And it's not just in the C-suite we're seeing these changes in roles. We're seeing new roles and new capabilities coming into these organizations and being required. Information engineers, data scientists, analysts, all of these roles are coming in and playing a big part in terms of the organization, because to the end that it is really all about better understanding our performance and then looking at that performance and saying, well, are we in the right place? Do we need to do something different, or do we carry on as we are? So I want to just take a quick look really at kind of measuring performance and how in recent times our kind of KPI and measurement yardsticks have changed. If we look at the kind of the old world, as you would call it, and those kind of traditional KPIs, they tend to focus much more on those asset-centric measures and lagging measures. We've all seen these kind of hard copy reams of reports of data and performance metrics that you have. Many of us would probably shudder still at the thought of the old June returns. But these were all quite static, and they basically had a very singular focus a lot of the time in terms of what they were reporting against and what you could see. Moving to more recently, we then started to see a move towards more service-centric measures, so more outward-looking, not just what the asset was doing in terms of performance, but what impact that performance had on the service it was providing. We started to see a bigger mix of leading indicators, and in fact, some indicators that are out with the industry that we're in. Anyone in the UK sector knows that the SIM scores, that was the first time we started comparing water company performance against other providers, maybe in energy, telecoms, retail, and this really started to change the focus of what good looked like for companies. And if we move forward yet again, we start to see this broader, much broader mix, a more complex set of these driving factors and a wide array of data and insights being provided to us across a myriad of different sources that really build that dynamic scorecard that you can see. And this is really important because this really starts to provide us with a full picture of not only what is currently happening, but we also now have the ability to predict what is most likely to happen next, and therefore what the consequence of those potential performance measures would be and what that picture looks like. So you can see the kind of very different looking ways of measuring performance and interacting with your business's data and insights. And I think for me, this is really important because it really gives us the insight and the ability and the time to plan our responses. Maybe test some scenarios in terms of how we might respond and take a more measured approach to understanding the interventions and deploying them in a measured way that we can keep our customers informed along the way. And this is really the takeaway from this for me, which is around the benefits. So the benefits of combining those traditional measures that are still important, but with these wider ranging new KPIs that we look at, and including some of these new technologies and new reporting capabilities, it really gives us a way to manage our businesses better, because the way we operate has changed, the context in which we operate has changed. So it would stand to reason that the KPIs that are really important to us would need to change to reflect this as well. This really then gives us the ability to take more data-driven decisions, which I think is a really good thing to do.
So if we're looking to, I suppose, address the benefits of data-driven decision-making, we could possibly summarize it in the old saying, the rising tide lifts all boats. Ultimately having information is crucial. Having that data that serves a significant purpose to your organization is even more crucial. So some of the key industry challenges that are moving forward will be seamlessly addressed by using data-driven decision-making. So one such example is the large percentage of the workforce that's fast moving into retirement. There is going to be a need to capture and store that knowledge and that experience. So using technologies like we've been discussing and the abundance of data, we can now start to extract and we can start augmenting this data, this knowledge. So machine learning, along the same lines, machine learning allows us to understand complex relationships faster and more effectively. And again, with the abundance of data, we can now improve the way we understand our environment and our assets. And this provides the ability to address key issues of resilience too.
And this is quite an interesting point, because the things that you're talking about there are challenges that we face, but we do have some of the solutions to them. I think if we can deploy some of these solutions, we can really get to a point where those real valuable subject matter experts, the people within our business that we really trust, who perform time and time again, we really need them to be undertaking the valuable activities, which means we need to start getting away from having people like that running some of the more transactional activities in our businesses. If we can systemize these types of activities and make them more transactional, make them more process driven and potentially automated, that really gives us a capacity release with our workforce. And there's a real cost benefit to this, as we know we all have large OpEx challenges ahead of us. It also then gives us this ability to see all the way from the kind of data to the action to the outcome and the impact. And this really helps us with our proactive interventions around our customer service levels. But the thing from moving to data from people is there's a big element here around trust.
Yeah, so, and again, to that point on consistency, we've got these sensors which are providing consistent, frequent, unbiased data, which is now forming the foundation of informing repeatable decisions within organizations. So we're already there. That data is moving, and it's serving its purpose in terms of the as relates to transparency. You know, there is always a healthy degree of skepticism as we adopt new practices and we move down. This really does come down to the SME to find ways of providing visibility to build up that confidence through transparency, but obviously without compromising IP, which is sometimes a problem. Although, you know, the results really do talk for themselves. Quite often the insights are delivering improvements in efficiency and significant ROIs, and these efficiencies will certainly be driving decision making. So, but we are very conscious that cost benefit, or sorry, the efficiencies are not the only thing that are driving it, and the cost savings are not the only thing that are driving this need for data-driven decision making.
No, they're not. And let's not dance around it. There is a big challenge that we face around cost to serve and cost efficiency. But for me, if you take a step back and look at the things we've been talking about, really it's more about unlocking value right the way from data through to decision. And that value, be that better efficiency, optimization, better customer service levels, testing new ways of working, or better connecting our businesses. It really is all about knowing what you have, what you want, and figuring out how to get there, which is more around that digital journey that we're talking about. And this is already happening. You know, we're already working with some of our clients at looking at doing just this in a number of areas.
Yes, and one of those examples from a Rezatec perspective is working with Utilities Kingston in Canada. So Rezatec has delivered a detailed likelihood of failure assessment of their entire distribution network. So using machine learning, we leveraged Earth observation insights from satellite data, Kingston Utilities' very own GIS data, and historic leakage information, which enabled us to provide Utilities Kingston a granular output which targeted their 20% of the network which was most at risk of failure. This was validated and correlated very positively with 60+% of the main leaks and breaks that have occurred, and has provided a minimum ongoing expectation of success moving forward. So having this information and these insights has enabled the prioritization of future inspections, of maintenance, and other activities in a more cost-effective manner. The value of likelihood of failure data is being realized by other clients in different ways as well. Some such are moving forward and prioritizing their asset replacement programs over hundreds or even thousands of kilometers. So these definitive benefits are not defined at this stage. Sorry, let me try that again. The benefits that these clients have seen have not been defined at this stage. They are TBD, and we're working through these to build up that understanding. But as it stands, the expectation for these is a substantial benefit. Now, that's something that we're looking to address in future webinars, and we're actually looking to bring these case studies in further on. But I'll hand over to Mark to go through yours there.
Yeah, there was one I thought I would just mention, which is a project we're doing here in the UK with Anglian Water, one of the larger water companies. It's a really exciting project. It's based around a large strategic pipeline that they are going to be building in the next regulatory period. But it actually goes beyond that. It's leveraging the value from digital twin infrastructure. So taking all of that emerging thinking and deploying it through a proof of concept project. And this really brings together some of the facets that we've just been talking about, which is how different roles within an organization need to view the performance of their assets. And some of the areas we're talking about here is maybe the difference between a treatment works manager who needs to try and figure out how to run their plant effectively with maybe less budget, or a network ops manager who can see through the AI that it's predicting with a high probability that there may be an interruption to supply in the next 24 hours. They can then train and look at the different scenarios that they could deploy interventions to manage that outage more proactively. And of course, this ability is all founded on having the data in the right format, understanding what you have, creating that ability to integrate this wonderful picture of different things that we have to provide these different insights to the users. It's a really exciting project, and I'm really interested to see where it goes in the coming months.
That is a very exciting project, and it actually looks like there are many avenues for that to go. So thank you, Mark. We really look forward to hearing more about this. And as I said, I think we should address these in future webinars to see where we're going and what results we've seen. But that really covers it from us. So thank you. And Katie, back to you. Katie.
To Katie.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks for that, guys. It was awesome. Now that we've delved deeper into the digital transformation journey, we hope that you're able to see that you probably have a lot more value in the data that you currently have, that you can plug into innovative technology solutions that are able to work together to hit both your traditional and updated KPIs, enabling you to make proactive data-driven decisions. Now that we've explored that, we'd like you to retake the poll that you should see on the screen now to see if you think your positioning has changed at all on your digital transformation journey. So I can see the live results coming through, and it seems relatively similar, although a lot less people think that they're at the exploratory stage. So just waiting for a couple more results to come through before I finish it. I'm going to cap it there. So I'm going to share the results on the screen with you all. So in the first poll, we had 21% of people at the exploratory stage. We had 33% at pockets of good practice, 38% at company-wide adoption, and 8% at class-leading innovation through digital. So although relatively similar, we have had a few changes there, and we will kind of delve deeper into these polls in future webinars. But for now, to close, David, Mark and myself would like to thank you all so much for your time today. We understand that it has been a very high-level overview of a lot of topics being discussed within the industry at the moment, which is why we are following on with 3 additional webinars. The dates are on the screen, so we've got Tuesday the 26th of May, Tuesday the 16th of June, and Tuesday the 7th of July. We'll of course send information about how to register and what topics will be being discussed within each webinar, along with a recording of this webinar by the end of the week.